Once there was a shipwright who was given the impossible task to make a ship like no other. It was to be handcrafted for a hero, they had said, and so it was. The man worked diligently on this ship day and night. Every plank was carefully inspected, selected, and carved. The sails cut and sewn by his hand, the rope and nails made in the small hours of the evening. It was a boat that was the man's conviction as much as it was the earth's sacrifice. Soon, though, the boat had taken up a life of its own. It was as if the boat were his child, created and raised by the boat maker, and the maker loved his boat as he would a child. However, eventually, the famed hero came for the shipwright. Tales were whispered amongst the men in the countryside. He had no reputation yet to speak of, but people said he was destined for greatness. Theseus was his name. He was tall, handsome, and brave, like all the heroes in the stories of old were. He said he had come to collect his ship, something about a great voyage and various trials. The lowly boatmaker was too busy taking his last walk on the deck to give it much attention. It was perfect, he thought. Never had he created life such as this, and he was sure that he never again could. However, the hero was impatient, as all heroes were, and reminded the maker that he needed to set sail soon. And so the boatmaker stepped off the ship at last, just as all manner of burly sailors and daring heroes boarded, with their bright eyes full of adventure, youth, and danger. The boatmaker stood on the dock for a very long time then. He watched as the men made their preparations and stowed their belongings until finally they set off. The boatmaker watched from afar as his perfect creation disappeared over the horizon like a lamenting father would when watching his son leave for war. And then it was quiet for a very long time after that indeed. Summers had come and passed, harvests were sown and reaped, the young fell in love, and the old rose in it. Towns were built, kingdoms rose, and the ripe died for worn-out causes. Over these long years, the boatmaker's life went on much as it once did. He spent his days building ships, mopping his floors, and listening to the sounds of the waves crashing upon the rocks. He walked the beaches and listened to young men exchange tales with the old. Talk would come as quickly as it went, and the shipwright would sit and listen to tales, to stories of Theseus, all the while never forgetting his perfect ship. It seemed that Theseus never sat still for very long. One story mentioned that Theseus traveled as far as the underworld. Another tells that Theseus ripped apart a man with great pine trees, and that he even defeated King Kerkuon in a wrestling match. He was in a rush, as all heroes were, but the boatmaker would smile because he knew his hard work had done him proud before men and monsters, before diamonds and gods, before the earth and the sky. One day, a boat had docked at the harbor. The man, now old and gray and hard of sight, recognized his ship immediately and hobbled down to the harbor to be reunited souls once more. Just as he arrived on the dock, a man jumped off the boat. It was Theseus. He looked far harder man now than the bright-eyed boy he once was. The reality of adventure had taken its toll and exacted its tax, it seems. His tan and young skin, now faded and riddled with nasty scars, covered in sea salt and grit, his eyes hard and gray, like the ocean before a storm. It was hard to deny that he was the son of Poseidon. If Theseus remembered the boatmaker, he surely did not show it. "You there," he said, pointing at the shipwright, "help secure my ship, for I have pressing business in town." He was in a rush, as all heroes were. The boatmaker didn't mind. It was the perfect excuse to say hello to his long-lost friend. He helped the men dock the ship, and couldn't help but notice that there were far less of them now than had left the port many years prior. Still, when the men went into town for drink, the shipwright had snuck on board. With a sigh of relief, his feet hit the deck and he began to walk the ship. But something was wrong. The boards didn't sound right under his feet. He ran back and forth, frantically testing the planks he had once so carefully laid, each sounding more false than the last. The man began to nervously scramble now, inspecting every inch of his creation until he discovered that it was not the same ship at all. In fact, every board and plank, every nail, and even the mast itself had all been replaced with cheap copies due to damages taken during the voyage. Nothing was left. His boat had become the sacrificial lamb by which Theseus had achieved his glory. In terror, the boatmaker hopped off the ship and stared in disbelief for what felt like hours, until finally the men returned from town. Glorious Theseus and his men, nothing more than a rabble of drunks now, had begun to laugh at the maker, asking him, "What's wrong, old man? Have a drink with us. Sing, dance, listen to our tales of adventure and our heroism." But the maker was too angry to sing, too angry to dance or to eat, too angry to breathe. "You killed my child for your precious glory," he said, with the kind of quiet anger that only a humble man was capable of. Theseus stepped forward, laughing. "What?" he asked in confusion. "Many years ago, before your fame and reputation, I made a ship for you," the boatmaker stated. "I carved it myself. I crafted the nails, the mast, the rudders. Everything about that ship was a part of me. But this ship you have brought home to me is not that ship." "Well, of course it is, you silly old man," Theseus gestured at the name on the side. "It's the same ship. It says so right here." "But everything about it is different," the man argued. "Please tell me what you did with the original parts. Give me this last chance to rebuild her." But the men, clearly done with the shipwright, had already began to board their ship. Before long, they had set off, their laughter and merriment echoing in the dimly lit harbor. The boatmaker collapsed into a heap on the dock and began to weep beneath the stars. He watched helplessly as a boat disappeared over the horizon once again, just like so many years before. But it was not his boat, and never would be again.